Weight Free Wellness Podcast, number 9. Welcome to the Weight Free Wellness Podcast, helping you through the ups and downs with weight, self-image, and health. Sharing resources, interviews with experts, and inspirational personal stories. Dealing with digestive issues can be challenging for anyone, but especially for and with kids. In this episode, Dr. Rory, a chiropractor and functional medicine practitioner in the Minneapolis area, shares how he works with kids and what he looks for when dealing with them and their digestive issues. As always, you can find the show notes at weightfreewellness.com. Just look for episode number 9. And if you find this podcast helpful in any way, please share it. Dr. Rory gets us started here in this episode. Enjoy.
Life really is what presents to me in my office and what I see a majority of the time. And so what I see is children who come in with a lot of stomach issues, and children usually up to the age of 7 and 8 are that they haven't really expressed who they are yet until they get to teenagers. And so we're all feelers in our stomach, and so we'll see a lot of like bloating and gassing, and especially with little kids. And so we want to help them straight away and find out if that's anxiety, is it depression, is it stress, are they picking things up in the family? So straight off the bat with children, we tend to go there with stress patterning, other things, because we know they exercise well because they run all day. So, and then after that, it's going to be food, right? So diet has a huge impact. And then after that, it's going to be pathogens, which is basically infection. So that could be bacterial, viral, fungal, or yeast. So we usually start with the stress format,
So that's the first thing you go to, actually.
It is. It's behavioral, it just seems so obvious, you want to know. And because most people are not vulnerable to tell you the truth of what's going on in their families, So we get them an idea, whether it's a friend situation, a home situation, or a school situation, So you kind of do little prying questions, hey, how are things with your friends? And how's school going? And, and what's your favorite class? And what's not your favorite class? And so, I mean, the reality is we can all remember back to those days when we were little kids and what really affected us. And so I can remember those days with my stomach because I felt things,
Mm-hmm.
So we can't allude to that. I mean, that is reality. So sometimes people need, adaptogens, just calmers, helping them calm better. So then we look at sleep cycles and how they get to sleep, or if they have disrupted sleep. So,
Do you think that's why, for parents, it seems to me when I'm discussing with a parent and they're asking me, what can I do for my child that keeps coming down with this? If you're saying that a lot of times you do address the emotional first, is that why it can seem so elusive to a parent? Because they're in that environment too and may not be recognizing it?
Well, we all can relate with, oh, I came back from a holiday from Central America or, from Europe, and the foods change, and sometimes we drink water that may be contaminated. So we may get like a C. diff or a parasite from the water, and that can change our reality straight away. It's uncomfortable. It's not a familiar pattern to us. So that's really obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm going to do a stool test and I'm going to find out if there are pathogens in there. But the majority of people are not going on holidays every week, so that tends to be where I will start.
So I could imagine that, it's so elusive. Even us as adults, it's hard. It can be hard to keep track of our own emotions and how our body's reacting. And then to, as a parent, observe all your kids and what's going on.
Sure. No different to, our modern lifestyles have asked of us to be in a car for 2 hours a day going each way to work. I mean, do you think that's going to stress your tummy out? Well, of course it does, we don't like to talk about it too much. We're just more focused on external objective stuff that we want to know, that whether we had a bad food or, or that food is not really agreeing to us. We tend to go with the food, more than often not.
Mm-hmm.
So after stress, we go with diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this modern day diet, everyone's on the go. So everything is a little bit more processed. So it makes sense to kind of like address people's diet from breakfast to before they go to bed, that makes sense. So we ask kids, for instance, what are the most common foods that they tend to have every day, or what do they have at school? Is it a school lunch, or is it what does mom and dad make, or what do they make themselves?
Hmm.
So it makes a big difference.
So, like with your kids, for example, if they come to you with a tummy ache or something, I would assume that you would address the emotional first and observing their environment emotionally, it sounds like.
Well, we would look at the communication first. Like I would notice around the house if brother is picking on sister. Of course, some kids tend to be more feelers, and some kids tend to be more pragmatic and are aggressors. They're just different archetypes. So the kid that feels a little bit more, I tend to look at that could be a stress induced. Then yes, obviously.
So, what are some tools that you use? Like, how do you even decipher this when they come into your office? How do you decipher, first of all, if it's something that's emotional, or whether you go to step two and address diet?
Well, I guess I should be more frank with you. I think diet would be the first place that I
Okay.
would, because it opens communication. Because most people don't want to get vulnerable with stress and emotions, and they don't want to be truthful and too honest about what's going on. We are getting better at it, because you will see um, like Tony Robbins, or you'll see the likes of Brené Brown from the TED Talks. She's the most popular speaker. And so vulnerability is becoming more popular now, where we can communicate what's going on and we're comfortable with how we are feeling and sensing. But until then, I get people more comfortable with talking about diet. So the biggest culprits for children, of course, is going to be, dairy, and which is milk and cheese. And then secondarily after that, we're looking at gluten, so that's going to be wheat products, because they're all very processed now. And so we've taken away a lot of the goodness that is in them, and we've kind of replaced them, mainly because of shelf life and how long they can last. You've heard of saturated fats. So we can basically leave a Twinkie in the back of my car and open that trunk in about a year, and it's still going to look exactly the same. Okay. So
Hmm.
real food tends to go off really quick, and that's good. I think Paleolithic wise, we were designed to maybe go to the market, in the morning and the evening time, and eat fresh stuff. So we try to do that, and I can see more people are aware of eating fresh as often as possible, right?
Right.
So functional medicine is basically, because it's a subjective thing for each person. So as we spoke about, like a child coming in with an anxiety or a stress may not be like the other child presenting with the same symptoms. It could be food or gluten sensitivity related. So functional medicine allows you to investigate that and to kind of track it down. So we use history very well. We use laboratory tools very well, like lab tests. So certainly with the GI, it's going to be a stool test. And so we kind of, it's lovely to educate people. And I think education is, so you give people the tools so they can discern themselves, what is going on, because that'll motivate them to come in more instead of waiting for the big fire markers, the big symptoms, which is body breakdown. And so we want to catch some of these markers way beforehand. And it's occurring. People are more curious now. Functional medicine seemingly is a big movement towards that, to pick up the earlier reference markers, the earlier biomarkers of health, before it gets too bad.
And what a gift to actually be able to learn that at a younger age, if these people are coming in as kids to your office.
Hmm.
Because at the chiropractic office, you do seem to have a different pace. I mean, you don't have a practice where you just hammer through the schedule and through people. And I've long wondered, is that just, do you think that's intrinsic to you, or is it a part of your culture that you come from that are people a little bit more laid back and take that time in the Irish culture?
Well, I think first and foremost, we all have an intrinsic rhythm to us. We all have our own natural rhythms. And so, yes, every culture has a rhythm. It's a different wavelength, a different frequency. So when I came to the States in 98, 99, I was extremely excited. My speed sped up, and, I had a phone. I had to let everybody know where I am, where I'm coming back. So, not that we did that, not that we didn't do that in Ireland, but we didn't do it to the same degree. Um, so I'm always trying to find that rhythm in my office, to really connect with people. I love that, spending a little bit extra time with people, and because we are a bunch of stories, and I just want to know how real you find your own story that brought you to where you're at, and what effect biologically that has on you. So yeah, they're connective. They make sense, right? I mean, our biologies are our stories, right? Our stories are our biology. It makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And traveling just definitely makes you more aware of which stories you identify with as opposed to the stories of other cultures.
Yes.
Now, I'm not diagnosing or anything over this podcast, nor do I ever, but just bringing up some ideas about things that may be correlated, or that a simple tummy ache may be just taking some peppermint oil, or doing exercises that bring the knees into the belly can really just, or twisting the abdomen can be really helpful. What are some simple things that you try to instill in your clients?
Well, the number one is the most obvious that just comes to my mind, which is hydration, right?
Mm,
So
absolutely.
stepping up the quality, not just the water, but the type of water you have, can make a massive difference. And taking things like, because everybody's very aware now of magnesium, it's kind of one of those things that we want to take on the side, that nearly is necessary for us every day. It's an amazing cofactor mineral that we should be taking every day. And there's so many different types of magnesium that we can get confused with. So, for instance, if you have a GI issue, you'll see them over the counter. The most popular one is citrates, magnesium citrate. So it acts as an osmotic. So as all that water that you're drinking, it draws in the water into the gut, and it's nearly like a car wash. So that's a very simple thing to do. And magnesium is going to be in a lot of different foods like bananas, a lot of fruits. It's going to be in a lot of dark leafies. But sometimes we need a therapeutic dosage. We need to take the supplement on the side that can, and just notice what it does for you. Notice how I'm just saying magnesium right now, because I'm a fan of people just trying one thing at a time and then notice what they notice. And it's both therapeutic and educational for yourself to try that for maybe a week, see what it does. So the magnesium is cool. And then culturally, we can see everybody's getting more familiar with enzymes. So enzymes are really cool. So they help us digest, absorb, assimilate, and move food through our bodies a little bit better. So if you're having a malabsorption problem, a digestion issue, or an acid problem, these guys can really make a difference. And once again, I'm asking that you try to do that on its own and see what that does. Now, some people take it during meals and some people take them after meals. And I'm more inclined to have people take them after meals so that we allow our own body's processing and digestion enzymatically to come out, such as in your mouth, we have amylase and lipase, and they come out and they digest the foods. So don't take the enzymes at the same time you're eating. Sometimes we do it, but most often not afterwards. And then you look at other things, for the GI that can really help if we're looking at stress. Looking at adaptogens, they can be very, very helpful. So things like rhodiola or valerian, hops are really good. These things help us sleep. They calm our bodies down, and they calm your GI down if it's stress oriented. Certainly can make a big difference. And you spoke about the food connection. I try to have people do extra aminos or extra protein on the side for the gut. That can make a very big difference in people's sleeping schedules and also how they sense and feel in their gut relating to fuel. So that's something to have an experience with as well. It's just extra. So if you want to do it through food, chicken, egg, turkey, or fish, or do it through a shake, or you can do extra amino acids. You can get them in a pill, and that can make a big difference. So those
They
are
can
the
make a
simple
huge
things.
difference.
So those are things we take, from water to food. And of course, as you said, to do a little bit more movement. Movement can do a lot. So I'll do a little bit more qigong at home, a couple of times a day, and that can allow movement in my body, can allow movement of energy around my body, so whatever's stuck can move. And hopping on a bike, going for a walk, these things can make a big difference.
Yeah, our bodies are meant to move in the most basic ways. It's
Yes.
amazing how we're all meant like built. complementarily to go together, work together.
Yes.
I learned a couple of things recently that may add to this, that for some people, fiber doesn't help to move things through. It can actually make them more constipated. And it doesn't have to be related, apparently, to water content, which I thought was really interesting. And then maybe on a similar note, maybe you would expand on this, the prebiotics and probiotics, where maybe might you explain the difference between the two?
Well, we're all very familiar with the probiotics. We see them on the shelves in the stores, in your local co-op or in Whole Foods, and um, they're going to be in the fridge section because they're kept alive. And so you've heard of acidophilus and bifidus and rhamnosus. They're all fancy Latin names. So basically, they are live bacteria, and so we need them to digest and break down our foods correctly. And they put healthy bacteria back into our gut. Stresses can destroy bacteria a lot, or we take outside things that can influence. If you took too many antibiotics as a kid, that can also destroy the amount of good bacteria that we have in our gut, and certainly the variety, not just how much that is there. Variety can make a big difference too. So we tell people to take a broad spectrum probiotic, and then depending on the symptoms that they have, we can take a more specific type of probiotic. So if I'm working with a more autistic kid, I'll be more specific because we now know what kind of probiotics align with each person. So if you have an IBS or an autism, or somebody who's going through depression or menopause, there are seemingly probiotics that help with each stage a little bit better. And then prebiotics so the probiotics are a direct route into our gut. It's like you take it and it's just in your tummy. But then there are people we've noticed that they need substrates or they need foods, and they function better you've heard of things like kombucha. So we all know kombucha now. It's very, very popular. Things like tempeh, kefir, these are things that are yogurts. These are things that may have the food we call substrates, and that the body may break down, and then it makes the probiotic out of it for what it needs. So I think the reality is we need to do both. I think, aligning your lifestyle and your diet with foods every day, whether you're just having a bottle of kombucha, can make a pretty big difference. That's really good. Things like oats or inulin, those are good. They're called oligosaccharides. They can make a big difference in our diets, and just to put them into our diet every now and again, so things like psyllium husk, you may have seen that in the stores too, and so these are little things. You just need to find the one that works for you.
But are those the oligosaccharides? Aren't those the food for the bacteria? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes.
So you want to consume those so that you're supporting the bacteria in your gut, which is actually helping you to digest and actually assimilate the vitamins into your body.
So it's just kind of like humans. Sometimes, I have one child that needs to be shown what to do, and I have another child, do not tell them what to do. So sometimes, we need direction, and other people just need to be told what to do. So probiotics can be looked metaphorically as kind of the same thing. Let me get my healthy gut bacteria from my food. And we can test for that too. We can see that on the lab tests if you are that type. So there's a little biomarker it's called N-butyrate, that can tell us that if that's extremely low in people, we tend to up their food intake and not focus so much on the probiotic. So there's a lot of ways that we can figure that out, what type of person we're dealing with.
I think you're talking about that test. I think my results will be coming in soon, which maybe the next podcast we'll talk about some of the things that you can learn even by my results, or we'll talk about fatigue. But people can send in even ideas or questions. I'd like to move in that route too. So that will be really interesting. I found it really fascinating when you were showing me the options of basically what you can find out because of this testing. And like you said, that with certain people maybe low in a certain bacteria, and these symptoms of depression or certain other illnesses show up, and that you can actually what I'm assuming is you can repopulate your gut with those bacteria and it helps with the symptoms of that ailment.
Absolutely. We see people's mood and behavior shift. So you give certain probiotics to autistic children and you can see their moods and behaviors shifting. Parents are very happy then seeing how they socialize a little bit better. They're better at home with connecting with their siblings or their relations. So that is one small little tool, and that can work very effectively.
That's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that stuff on a personal level. Will be really interesting too.
It's changing a lot, and I think we're living in epidemic times right now, so people have to be motivated, and I think we can see them doing that coming into the office, whether it's educational or they want to have an experience better with their body. And so we feel we're kind of like journeymen or journeywomen, helping people through this process of learning more about interactions of foods and environments in our bodies. I think we're learning how to be human again.
You're getting in touch for sure. I mean, certainly my hope with this podcast and teaching is that you don't have to have a health crisis to actually start learning about your body and to be in tune and in touch. That hopefully through our conversations and so forth, that you can learn to have that connection so that you can actually optimize and thrive.
Yes, that's a good word, thrive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again. And it'll be fun to talk again about our next topic. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tara. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Share your questions, like and share your favorite podcasts, and connect with us on social media at weightfreewellness.com. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.